Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elias Mellon Priest, and I will be going over the business profile and evaluation of McCormick and Company Incorporated. To begin with, McCormick and Company Incorporated was ranked number one in the food products industry and ranked number 13th in the most sustainable corporations. These rankings were part of the 2019 Global 100 Sustainability Index released by the World Economic Forum by Corporate Knights. Uh, I believe that having agriculture companies at the forefront of sustainability practices and accounting can lead to the feeding and unlocking of the potential of the population. When we do this, we can reach potential that is kept locked away in the fight for basic necessities. McCormick and Company may be a flavor and spice company, but they can be at the leading edge of understanding how accounting and decisions can be made to move the entire industry in the correct direction. Additionally, I also chose this because of the global reach of what they have. They not only reach people within the United States or North America, but they have supply chains that reach out throughout the entire world. The triple bottom line continuously gets presented as the everything that everyone is going towards. This is the line of economic, social, and environmental metrics. McCormick is learning lessons on how to organize and incorporate these sustainable accounting practices into their decision makings. McCormick and Company Incorporated works off the framework of PLP, or Purpose-Led Performance, where McCormick is equally dedicated to strengthening their business and improving the world around us. This PLP approach is working towards improving the health and well-being of all people, building vibrant communities where we work, where we live, and source all of their products, and make a positive impact on the world. This is their own variation of the standard corporate responsibility report that many of the large corporations send out. More specifically, McCormick states that we bring purpose-led performance to life through three key areas, and these three key areas being the people, the communities in which they operate, and the planet as a whole. All of these goals are closely aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. Within this report, there is a reviewing of previous commitments from past years and progress towards those stated goals that they have. If they meet any more resistance than they were expecting, they have altercations on how to better achieve those goals, and stating of new goals that they see that are critical to the success of their business. They rely heavily on the triple bottom line paradigm, but use the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, as a guiding framework on what these goals should achieve. McCormick and Company does rely heavily on the PLP, or the Purpose-Led Performance Report, to represent metrics and figures that help them achieve their stated goals, but it does not have an official environmental profit and loss statement, or the ELP, as part of their yearly Form 10K reports that are submitted to the SEC. Since they are in the agriculture industry, with their primary resources being the natural resources they produce from, how is it that not having this statement become an integral part of their health assessment not been present? My one question is, why aren't environmental profit and loss statements required for more agriculture companies or the entire industry as a whole? Because they do rely the most, and you get a full representation of where they stand with how they treat the environment. Not to say that McCormick Company does not track any of these environmental numbers, because they do follow energy usage, waste amounts, and emissions to better track cost, but those are all linked back to the traditional forms of cost accounting. I do believe that more tracking of key metrics could prove to be vital for making better educated decisions. As seen by the three examples on the bottom, they were taking metrics and figures that they found in these locations and have put in resources to make these locations more profitable, more productive, and a more integral part of the McCormick business. One of the challenges of this, though, is that McCormick operates in so many unique, diverse locations around the world that if you try to lay down a one-size-fits-all metric or a one-size-fits-all solution, it's not going to work. So there needs to be a more dedication on having more metrics built up to understand how they interact with all of the locations they work in. McCormick and Company does not have an environmental profit loss statement, but they do abide by the GAAP metrics, or the generally accepted accounting principles, and they do sprinkle in some of the non-GAAP metrics, or what they call special charges. These special charges are metrics that don't particularly fit into any of the traditional standards, but do help towards the longevity of McCormick and Company. Um, for this, I believe that since they are such a large organization and have so many supply chains and reaches around the world, I believe that since they are a global business, that they should be abiding by global standards. And yes, the global standards of sustainability reporting do exceed that is required in the US right now. Um, and I believe that sustainability should have a standard approach of having a world approach, because value is not only seen as how a small piece of the world is doing. Value needs to be seen as a whole picture and seeing how the world is doing. And I believe that the Global Initiative for Sustainability Rating, or the GISR, would be the framework that McCormick and Company should start using to make sure that they are up to global standards in which they operate. For a more in-depth analysis of how McCormick and Company is doing in terms of financial health, where we look at the income statements, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement, we do a comparison of how they are doing to someone else within the industry. Let's see. McCormick and Company, as stated before, does not have an EPL statement, but environmental investing can still be seen in the traditional forms that they are reported yearly. There can be, once we look at the figures that they do have present, we can see that there's an increased loan activity, with the asset liability ratio showing a trend towards more liabilities. And these moves have left them vulnerable to very uncertainty in the near future. But these investments and debts are not being used as a short-term turnaround, but a long-term investment in the communities and people that work as part of McCormick's industry. The infrastructure, technology, and social support are all being heavily contributed to. So they are trying to be the first movers. They are the ones that, as shown by the rankings beforehand, were ranked number one in the food industry and 13th most sustainable company or organization. So they are heavily invested. For the 3 to 5 year outlook, it shows that they are investing so much. They're taking so much money to be able to put into those societies, into those supply chains, into that technology to help them move towards more sustainable things. As part of the financial analysis, ConAgra Foods was evaluated next to McCormick and Company, and they were seen as doing some infrastructure buildup within the most recent times, but they are falling behind on return on investment and profit margins because they are still not up to sustainability standards. As part of the financial analysis that we did for McCormick and Company, we found out that there was heavy investment in the infrastructure, societies, and communities in which the McCormick supply chain and their organization operates in. With this heavy investment, it does leave them vulnerable to uncertainties and volatility within the global market. As for part of this, we looked more into their overall picture and what these financial metrics are trying to tell us and how they would be able to survive in case there was large uncertainty. So for the short term, we saw that there could be the consolidation of production of not full capacity locations. So there could be a handful of locations that are all running at 50 to 75%. We could shut down some of those and move production so that we could work on the economies of scale of their existing infrastructure. Then there could also be a product evaluation. So we saw that in the short run, McCormick and Company does have so many flavors and so many products that they are giving that, if need be, depending on cost, we could shut down or just close that for a short time to ride through the uncertainty. But for the long term, we saw these as possible investments and ideas that can help them continuously drive their costs down in the long term. This first one is the increase in renewable energy initiatives. They've already started this, but a ramp up could help them in the long term. Um, Additionally, there is the empowering of employees. As stated from the introduction, food products unlock the potential of people and take them away from the bare necessities. Well, if you empower your employees to not be scared for their survival or scared for the possible losing of a job, they are more invested in that, and there would be less turnover costs and less costs associated with just talent keeping. And then there's also the network of good. Um, Whenever you can build trust, build all of these relationships, you become more reliant as a community, as a organization, and as an individual. And you would have help and assistance in times that you may have troubles if you're able to have good people behind you. Lastly, through the business profile and evaluation, I saw some key areas that McCormick and Company could improve in. On the financial side, there could be the increase in sustainability accounting framework. Right now, they do abide by the GAAP framework that is required by the US, but I do believe that they could do more by having and achieving global standards for what sustainability is. On the internal side, they could spread equality along the entire supply chain. They have outlined this as one of their key ideas and goals for the upcoming years, but I do believe that they could do more to help foster thrivability within the places that they source their materials. Next, there is innovation, where I believe transparency equals trust. One of the largest trends that I've seen is that food traceability and product traceability does help people trust what you're doing and how you're doing it. If we can create this level of, you can see how I'm doing it, what practices I'm doing, I believe people will trust the organization more, and that will have a higher premium on what their products can give you. And lastly, I believe customers need more information accessibility. I was able to find all of this information through various sources, including the PLP, or the Purpose-Led Performance Report, but it took a lot more understanding, number crunching to be able to understand what their financial records actually mean and what they were trying to tell us. I believe the looping in of the accounting framework could help customers access their information better and understand what they're actually trying to do. Lastly, if anyone has any questions, please reach out to me. I'm more than willing to answer anything, and I hope everyone has a great day.